On 5 February 1840, Joseph Smith gave a discourse in Washington, D.C. The only record we have of it is a letter that newspaperman Matthew Davis wrote to his wife. Davis was not attending in an official capacity, but simply because he was curious about Joe Smith, the Mormon prophet. He wrote the letter the day after the sermon, and he doesn't hesitate to say when he can't remember exactly what Joseph said. So we can be pretty sure about the veracity of the letter and the contents. Davis says the entire discourse was more than 2 hours long, and he just recorded some things he found particularly interesting. I'll cover the highlights in this video, and link to the entire document in the video description. After Smith says he believes in the omnipotent, omniscient God of Christianity, quote, "He then took up the Bible. I believe, said he, in this sacred volume. In it the Mormon faith is to be found. We teach nothing but what the Bible teaches. We believe nothing but what is to be found in this book." Towards the ending of the letter, Davis reports, "And he again repeated that all who would follow the precepts of the Bible, whether Mormon or not, would assuredly be saved." I thought these quotes were interesting, given how often other branches of Christianity still accuse Mormons of not believing the Bible. Davis records some comments which contain doctrine separating Joseph from most other Christian teachers on the subject of the fall of man. Quote, "I believe in the fall of man as recorded in the Bible. I believe that God foreknew everything, but did not foreordain everything. I deny that foreordain and foreknow is the same thing. He foreordained the fall of man. But all merciful as he is, he foreordained at the same time a plan of redemption for all mankind. I believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ, and that he died for the sins of all men who in Adam had fallen. As I understand it, many Christian denominations believe that the fall was a terrible mistake, requiring the later intervention of a Messiah to redeem mankind. Joseph says that both the fall and atonement were part of the plan of God. Also, those were some intriguing things about the difference between knowing everything and causing everything, which I wish we had more about. He then entered into some details, the result of which tended to show his total unbelief of what is termed original sin. He believes that it is washed away by the blood of Christ, and that it no longer exists. As a necessary consequence, he believes that we are all born pure and undefiled, that all children dying at an early age, say 8 years, not knowing good from ill, were incapable of sinning, and that all such assuredly go to heaven. Of course, salvation by the pure grace of God in the manner of these children is still technically part of LDS doctrine, but I think it's often overshadowed by things like covenant path, paying tithing, etc. This next part is fascinating. I believe that God is eternal, that he had no beginning and can have no end. Eternity means that which is without beginning or end. I believe that the soul is eternal. It had no beginning. It can have no end. Here he entered into some explanations, which were so brief that I could not perfectly comprehend him. But the idea seemed to be that the soul of man, the spirit, had existed from eternity in the bosom of divinity, and so far as he was intelligible to me, must ultimately return from whence it came. Joseph's teachings about our own human souls having no beginning or end are best known from the King Follett Discourse, a general conference talk given 4 years subsequent to this discourse. It's also contained in chapter 3 of the Book of Abraham, which it appears Joseph translated in 1842. But here we see he was sharing the idea with crowds of non-Mormons in 1840. It's the earliest I've seen this doctrine, although I admit I have not done a thorough search. But I digress. In a similar vein, Davis records that Joseph, quote, "said very little of rewards and punishments. But one conclusion from what he did say was irresistible. He contended throughout that everything which had a beginning must have an ending, and consequently if the punishment of man commences in the next world, it must, according to his logic and belief, have an end." Here Joseph is teaching a universalism that again is technically still part of LDS doctrine, but is often subsumed in LDS culture by a sometimes myopic focus on doing specific works to get specific degrees of heavenly glory. An intriguing inference. If punishments that have a beginning must have an ending, is it possible that the punishment of Lucifer and the other fallen angels will eventually end? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The final words that Davis records from Joseph are about the Book of Mormon. Quote, "The Mormon Bible," he said, "was communicated to him direct from heaven. If there was such a thing on earth as the author of it, then he, Smith, was the author. But the idea that he wished to impress was that he had penned it as dictated by God. I think this is important, because people like to argue about what Martin Harris or Oliver Cowdery said about stones in hats or spectacles on breastplates. Joseph was consistent in his words. Although he never mentions the physical method by which he received the Book of Mormon, he is always clear that it was not a process of translating one language into another. The book was a revelation to him from God. Well, I thought those were the most interesting parts of this almost unknown and nearly lost discourse from Joseph Smith. Give the whole thing a read at the link below if you like. Do you think I'm off base with my comparisons to current LDS practice? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, this is I Believe Joseph, signing off.